The eviction notice trembled in my hand. Or maybe that was just me. March 15, 2018, 4:47 p.m. By noon tomorrow, the doors of Rosemary's Corner would be chained forever. At 50 years old, I was about to lose the only thing my grandmother ever gave me that truly mattered. I was wrapping her last recipe card in newspaper when the Mercedes purred to a stop outside. You don't see many $80,000 cars on Maple Street. You definitely don't see people in Armani suits walking into a failing cafe pouring its last cups of coffee. The woman's heels clicked against my worn linoleum like a countdown timer. The man behind her carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than I made in a month. She glanced at her Rolex, then fixed me with eyes that seemed to know every secret I'd ever buried. Then she spoke, and my knees nearly buckled. She said they represented someone I'd saved 21 years ago. Then she added, flatly, Mrs. Noyes, the FBI is in position to arrest your sister Patricia for murder and Harrison Blackwood for racketeering. We needed to secure you first. The arrests happen as soon as I give the signal. Then she asked if I remembered a hungry little boy named Tommy. My name is Deborah Noyes, and this is the story of how a single act of kindness destroyed my family and, in the end, saved my life. Let me take you back to where the insanity began. October 1997. I was 29, fresh out of culinary school with dreams bigger than my bank account. My grandmother Rose was fading, and my older sister, Patricia, had moved in to help. I was finishing my final semester, driving home weekends to see Grandma. She kept complaining about new pills Patricia was giving her, said they made her feel worse. I wanted to question it, but Patricia had a way of making you feel small for asking. She'd answer with that slight, pitying smile that suggested you were too simple to understand complex things. Grandma died on October 15th, heart failure. The doctor said it was natural for an 82-year-old woman. Patricia was there, holding her hand. I was 3 hours away, taking a final exam. By the time I got home, Patricia had already called the funeral home, the lawyer, and somehow convinced our grieving relatives that Grandma had changed her will the week before. Patricia got the house, prime real estate worth $400,000. I got the cafe, just the business, not the building, a lease, some old equipment, and a stack of recipe cards. The lawyer read the will like he was announcing lottery numbers. Patricia tried to look sad, but I caught her checking her reflection in the window, already mentally renovating. The only strange moment was when Harrison Blackwood showed up at the funeral. A 40-year-old property developer who'd been circling our neighborhood like a vulture for years. He made a beeline for me after the service, offering $15,000 cash for my lease rights. Said he was doing me a favor. Something about the way he mentioned geological surveys made my skin crawl. I told him the cafe wasn't for sale. He smiled like I'd just told him a joke only he understood. December 20th, 1997. The night everything changed. Buffalo was in the grip of its worst winter in a decade. I was closing up alone, counting the day's pathetic take, $47. I was wearing 3 of Grandma's old sweaters, the heat barely taking the edge off. That's when I heard a sound by the dumpster. At first, I thought it was a raccoon, but raccoons don't cry. The boy couldn't have been more than 8. He wore a thin summer jacket, shoes held together with duct tape, and jeans so worn I could see the bones of his knees through them. He was wedged between the dumpster and the wall, trying to escape the wind. When he saw me, he tried to run, but hunger makes you slow. He collapsed after 3 steps. I carried him inside. He weighed nothing, a bag of bird bones. His name was Tommy, he said. He'd run from his foster home 3 days ago. The foster dad liked to use his fists. He'd been sleeping behind restaurants, eating what he could find. He picked mine because it smelled like bread. I made him Grandma's revival soup, the one she claimed saved my grandfather during the Depression. Potatoes, carrots, the last of my good beef stock, and that secret ingredient she never wrote down, love, the simple act of giving a damn. Tommy ate 3 bowls. He said it was magic because his stomach stopped hurting. The kid had a way with words. Then I noticed something strange. He was staring at my menu, quietly adding up combinations in his head. When I tested him with a complicated order, he had the total before I could reach for my calculator. The boy was some kind of mathematical genius, hidden inside ripped jeans and mismatched socks. I let him sleep in the storage room, just for one night, I told myself, but when morning came and he helped me prep vegetables, calculating portions to the penny, I knew I was in trouble. This kid was special, and the world had been kicking him around like garbage. Tommy became my shadow that winter. He didn't just have a gift for numbers, he had a photographic memory. He memorized every customer's order after serving them once. He created an efficiency chart for sandwich making that saved 12 seconds per order. 12 seconds doesn't sound like much, but over 50 sandwiches, it was 10 minutes. 10 minutes to actually sit and breathe. My sister Patricia started visiting more often, always at the worst times. 5 a.m. She'd show up with that fake concerned face. "Deborah, dear, you look exhausted. Maybe you should sell to Harrison before you work yourself to death." Harrison Blackwood. That name kept popping up. Patricia had started dating him just 2 months after Grandma's funeral. What a coincidence. A health inspector, an old friend of Patricia's, showed up in January and wrote me up for violations that didn't exist. Tommy watched it all with serious eyes, then said something that chilled me. "Miss Deborah, bad people always think nobody's watching, but someone's always watching." That's when I started my evidence journal. Every suspicious visit, every fake violation, every veiled threat, I documented it all. Tommy helped. His perfect memory catching details I missed. The miracle came in February. Miss Jane, a retired teacher and regular, noticed Tommy reading college textbooks while wiping tables. She asked him a few questions, then sat there stunned. She made some calls. Within a week, Tommy was taking official IQ tests. The result, 187. The social worker who came to investigate said he needed a stable home and proper schooling. Miss Jane, a widow with a warm house in Boston, volunteered to be his foster mother. I should have been happy. This was best for Tommy, but watching him pack his 3 belongings into a grocery bag broke something in me. That's when Tommy did the most Tommy thing ever. He pulled out a napkin and started calculating. "Miss Deborah, you've spent $2,847 on me, food, the coat, shoes, books, with compound interest at 7%. I'll owe you $50,000 by the time I'm 30. He signed it, future rich person. Tommy. I laughed. He didn't. "I keep my promises," he said, with the gravity of a much older soul. The day they left, I found Grandma's diary, hidden behind old tax returns. The entries from her last month were there. "Patricia brings new pills, white instead of pink. Feel worse each day. Tried to tell Deborah, but Patricia says I'm confused. Not confused, scared." My hands shook. Grandma's heart medication was pink. I had no proof, only a sickening certainty. I added the diary to my evidence journal and waited. The war. Patricia married Harrison in 2000. Their wedding gift to me was the first of many eviction attempts. Harrison claimed he'd bought the building. It failed. My grandmother, God bless her, had secured a 50-year lease in 1975. Fixed rent, ironclad terms. It couldn't be broken until 2025. So the war began. Mystery grease trap failures, rodent sightings that no one else ever saw, permit delays. My regular customers rallied. 85-year-old Ethel, sharp as a tack, became my intelligence officer at the country club. They formed a resistance, warning me about inspectors and snapping photos of Harrison's men snooping around. Meanwhile, Miss Jane's letters arrived from Boston. Tommy was thriving. He entered high school at 10, college at 12. MIT had already noticed him, but what touched me most were the simple lines. "He talks about you every day, Deborah. He's calculated exactly how many days until he can repay you. I've never seen a child so determined to keep a promise." Patricia's visits became psychological warfare. She'd comment on how tired I looked, how the cafe was dragging me down. She'd had another facelift that left her looking permanently startled. In 2005, disaster. Mr. Peterson, my original landlord, was forced to sell. Harrison had orchestrated a financial crisis for the old man. The building went to a shell company, but Grandma's lease held, and it included something called subsurface rights. I didn't understand what that meant. Harrison did. The 2008 recession almost killed me. Sales plummeted. I was serving homeopathic soup, A joke born of desperation. Then, in 2010, a miracle. Money orders started arriving. $487 every month. No name. Just a note. From someone who remembers. Enough to cover the most urgent repairs. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to keep me going. I cried the first time. Someone remembered. The money came like clockwork for years. When the water heater exploded, the next money order was exactly enough. It was as if someone was watching, calculating exactly what I needed to survive. Patricia and Harrison never stopped. Fake health violations, permit delays, an IRS audit, but I documented everything. My evidence journal had become a cabinet full of files. The reckoning. What I didn't know was that Tommy, now 26, had built an empire. He'd sold his first app for millions, then founded an AI company. By 2015, it was worth $10 million, and he'd hired a retired FBI agent to dig into Harrison. What they found was staggering. Harrison was running a multi-state property fraud ring, preying on the elderly. And then came the big discovery, a 1960 geological survey. The entire block, my cafe, the shops around it, sat on a rare lithium deposit worth $30 million. Harrison's father had hidden the report, planning to buy the land cheap. Harrison inherited the scheme. My 50-year lease, with its subsurface rights, was the only thing standing between him and $30 million. I'd been serving coffee above a fortune while counting pennies for heat. In 2017, Harrison found his loophole. A clause allowed a rent increase after substantial improvements. He added one brick to the back wall, painted it, and called it substantial. My rent went from $3,000 to $15,000 a month. The eviction notice came February 15, 2018. I started packing, gave away extra food, wrote recommendation letters. I'd lost. Patricia visited one last time on March 14. She sat at the counter, ordered a coffee she didn't touch, and told me everything. How they'd spent 20 years destroying me. How Grandma's death wasn't natural. She'd switched her heart medication. How they'd had cameras in my apartment, watching me struggle. How stupid I'd been. You should have taken the $15,000, she said, leaving a $100 bill on the counter. At least then you'd have something. That night, I sat alone in my empty cafe, surrounded by boxes. I'd failed. The anonymous benefactor who'd kept me afloat would find out tomorrow their money had been wasted. March 15, 2018, 4:47 p.m. The woman in the Armani suit, Sarah Winters, was a RICO attorney. The FBI was ready to move on Patricia for murder and Harrison for racketeering. Then the man beside her stepped forward. He was taller, broader, wearing a suit that fit like a second skin. But when he smiled, 21 years melted away. Same crooked grin. Same eyes that saw patterns in chaos. Miss Deborah, he said, his voice deep but gentle. Do you still have that napkin where I promised to pay you back? My knees gave out. I grabbed the counter. Tommy, Dr. Thomas Richardson, the 8-year-old who calculated sandwich prices faster than my register, was now a man worth over $50 million, and the person who'd been sending me $487 every month for 8 years. I keep my promises, he said, catching my arm to steady me. And for the first time in 20 years, I believed that maybe, just maybe, this story wouldn't end in defeat. Tommy, but you're tall, and you have hair everywhere. Appropriately, I stammered. He laughed, and the sound was the same as it had been 21 years ago. $487 a month. I calculated your average shortfall from the financial records I acquired. Yes, I hacked your bank. I was 13 and worried. His smile faded. But we need to move fast. Sarah Winters stepped forward, her voice all business. We have Patricia's full confession to murder, Harrison's admission to the entire fraud scheme on tape. The arrests happen as soon as I give the signal. Tommy pulled out an iPad and swiped to a video. Patricia got drunk at the Granite Falls Country Club last month, started bragging to someone she thought was a new member. The woman was an undercover federal agent. On the screen, Patricia's wine-flushed face was animated, cruel. Her words cut through the background chatter like a knife. Switching mom's pills was easy. Pink pills, white pills, who could tell the difference? Deborah was too stupid, checking on her every day but never checking the actual medication. Harrison said we needed the house as collateral. Mom had to go. The only surprise was how quickly it worked. 3 weeks instead of 3 months. I had to act devastated at the funeral while calculating renovation costs in my head. I barely made it to the bathroom. 21 years of suspicion. Confirmed in a casual confession over Chardonnay. Grandma hadn't died naturally. She'd been murdered by her own daughter for a house and a lithium deposit she never knew existed. When I came back, my hands braced on the counter. Tommy was on the phone. Yes, all teams green light. Both subjects. Simultaneous. The murder confession is authenticated. He hung up and turned to me, his eyes soft with an old understanding. Harrison's being arrested on the 9th hole at his country club. Patricia is in the middle of hot yoga. We thought the locations were poetically appropriate. How? The word was all I could manage. Tommy pulled up a chair and sat across from me. After Miss Jane took me in. I never forgot you. MIT accepted me at 14. I was coding by 15. Selling apps by 19. That Memory Vault app? It was inspired by you. The way you remembered every customer's preference. Every small kindness. I wanted to give that ability to everyone. Sarah Winters added. What drive? Richardson's investigator found would have been enough for civil suits. But then we found the pattern. 23 elderly victims across 3 states. All forced to sell properties that mysteriously contained valuable resources. That triggered RICO statutes. This became a federal case. Harrison got arrogant. Tommy continued. Started using the same shell companies repeatedly. Metro Property Management. Blackwood Holdings. Center City Leasing. All the same tax ID number if you dug deep enough. My AI company specializes in pattern recognition for financial crimes. Harrison's scheme lit up like a Christmas tree. My phone buzzed. Then again. Local news alerts. Prominent developer arrested at country club. Socialite taken into custody during yoga class. FBI raids multiple offices in fraud investigation. Tommy showed me another video. Harrison in golf attire. Trying to run from FBI agents in cleats. He slipped on the wet grass. Fell face first into a sand trap. The country club members, who'd apparently always despised him, actually applauded. An elderly man shouted, "That's for foreclosing on my brother's house." The murder charge. I whispered, "Will it stick?" Sarah nodded firmly. Patricia's confession. Combined with pharmacy records and the diary you kept of your grandmother's final days, it's more than enough. We also have Harrison on tape discussing how they needed your grandmother dead to proceed. Conspiracy to commit murder. First-degree murder. Federal fraud charges. They're both going away for a very long time. Tommy pulled out a document. But first, we need to handle your immediate problem. This is an emergency injunction. A federal judge signed it an hour ago. The eviction is cancelled. The rent increase is void. The cafe stays open pending federal investigation. He smiled that same 8-year-old's grin. And Deborah, you're about to become very wealthy. Harrison's substantial renovation was one brick painted a slightly different shade of beige. Even the judge laughed. The news hit Granite Falls like a meteor. Within an hour, everyone knew Harrison Blackwood, the man who'd built an empire on foreclosures and forced sales, was in federal custody. Patricia Noyes Blackwood, socialite and charity board member, was in jail for murdering her own mother. The FBI had seized everything: homes, cars, bank accounts, even Patricia's jewelry collection. Tommy had thought of everything. While the arrests happened, his team of lawyers filed civil suits on behalf of every victim they'd identified. Elderly people who'd lost homes to mysterious liens, small business owners forced out by fake violations, families destroyed by Harrison's schemes. The lawsuit totaled $97 million in damages. But the real shock came when Tommy explained the mineral rights. Your grandmother was a genius, he said, showing me the original lease. This subsurface rights clause. She must have known something. Maybe not lithium specifically, but she knew this land was special. As long as you hold this lease, you own everything under this building down to 30 feet. The lithium deposit is worth $30 million at current market prices. 30 million. I couldn't even conceive of that number. But it gets better, Sarah added, because Harrison knew about the deposit and deliberately hid it while trying to force you out. You have grounds for additional damages: fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conspiracy. We're looking at another $20 million minimum in punitive damages. My regular customers started arriving, drawn by the news. Ethel, now 90 but still sharp, brought champagne. I knew that constipated weasel was up to something. She announced. Bob from the hardware store started a Deborah Day petition right there in the cafe. Within an hour, 200 people were crammed into a space meant for 50, all celebrating. I pulled Tommy aside. Why? I asked. You could have just lived your life. You didn't owe me anything. He pulled out his wallet and extracted a carefully preserved napkin. There, in a child's handwriting, was his promise to pay me back. You gave me more than food, he said quietly. You gave me hope when the world had written me off. You showed me that kindness existed, even when you had nothing. Every line of code I wrote, every company I built, every algorithm I designed, I was trying to become someone worthy of that kindness. I laughed through tears. Miss Jane appeared in the doorway. She was older now, walking with a cane, but her eyes were bright. I hope you don't mind, Tommy said. I flew her in from Boston. She wanted to be here. The two women who'd saved Tommy hugged while he tried not to cry. We all failed at not crying. The trial was faster than anyone expected. When the judge saw the evidence Tommy's team had compiled, boxes of documented crimes, he fast-tracked everything. The media called it the Granite Falls Greed Trial, and court TV broadcast every minute. Harrison's lawyers abandoned him on day 3, when the prosecution played recordings of Harrison describing how he destroyed that pathetic waitress year by year, like a cat playing with a mouse. Even his legal team couldn't stomach defending him. He tried to represent himself. It went about as well as his attempt to run in golf cleats. Patricia's trial was worse. The prosecution played her country club confession 5 times. They showed pharmacy records, bank statements, and grandma's diary. The medical examiner testified that the combination of switched medications would have caused exactly the kind of heart failure grandma suffered. When Patricia took the stand, she tried to cry, but her latest Botox prevented any actual expression. One juror later told me Patricia looked perpetually surprised by math during the financial testimony. The sentences came down like hammer blows. Harrison, 30 years federal prison, no parole for 15. Patricia, life. Possibility of parole after 25. Judge Ronald Myers, 10 years for accepting bribes. Health Inspector Carla Hendris, 5 years for fraud. 4 other officials, 5 to 10 years each. The restitution was staggering, $97 million to be divided among victims. The government seized every asset Harrison and Patricia owned. The house Patricia inherited through murder, Harrison's 7 cars, their yacht, even Patricia's engagement ring, all auctioned for victim compensation. But the sweetest justice was more personal. Patricia got assigned to kitchen duty in federal prison. The woman who'd never cooked a meal in her life was now scrubbing pots for 200 inmates daily. Harrison's cellmate was a tax attorney serving time for embezzlement who talked constantly about regulatory frameworks and liked to sing Broadway show tunes off-key. The mineral rights resolved beautifully. A clean energy company offered $30 million for the lithium deposit. I kept $3 million, enough to renovate the cafe and live comfortably. The rest established the Second Chances Foundation, providing legal aid to elderly victims of property fraud. The cafe reopened on July 4, 2018. Independence Day felt appropriate. I kept the original menu but added one item. Tommy's sandwich, the exact meal I'd made him 21 years ago. Price: free for any child who's hungry. Adults paid $20, with proceeds funding the meal program. Tommy gave a speech that day. He stood where Harrison used to hold court at the country club and spoke about kindness. Deborah Noyes saved me with a bowl of soup and the radical belief that a throwaway kid might be worth something. She didn't know I'd become successful. She didn't know about the lithium. She didn't know anything except that I was hungry and she could help. That's true kindness. Helping when there's nothing in it for you. The FBI used our case as a model for fighting elder fraud nationwide. Tommy's AI company, now part of a larger tech firm, created free software that detected property fraud patterns. Within a year, they'd exposed 200 similar schemes across the country, recovering $500 million in stolen assets. Patricia tried to appeal. Of course, she claimed temporary insanity, coercion by Harrison, even poisoning by the prison food. The appeals court judge, an elderly woman whose own mother had been one of Harrison's victims, denied everything in record time. Harrison died in 2025, heart attack in his cell after serving 7 years. His cellmate said he was trying to calculate a new fraud scheme when it happened, still convinced he'd find a loophole. December 20, 2018. 21 years to the day since I found Tommy behind my dumpster. The cafe was packed with the dinner rush, families enjoying free meals, students from the coding academy grabbing coffee, seniors from the center playing chess by the window. The Noise Community Campus had transformed our entire downtown from a dying district into a thriving hub. I was closing up, counting the till. We'd made more in one day than I used to make in a month. Then I heard something by the dumpster. My heart stopped. Not again. The universe couldn't be that predictable. But it was. A boy, maybe 10, huddled in the same spot where Tommy had been. Torn jacket, shoes held together with hope and duct tape. That hollow look that comes from hunger being your only reliable companion. I brought him inside. Tommy was there. He often helped close up, said it kept him grounded. The look on his face when he saw the boy was like looking in a mirror across time. Without a word, I started making revival soup. Grandma's recipe. The secret ingredient was still the same, giving a damn. The boy ate 3 bowls. "Why are you helping me?" he asked between spoonfuls. Someone asked me that exact question 21 years ago. I said, catching Tommy's smile, "The answer hasn't changed. Because I can." Tommy sat beside him, a businessman worth millions, sitting next to a homeless child, equal in this moment. "You know what I learned?" Tommy said quietly. "Kindness isn't about the size of the gesture. It's about the size of the heart making it. Miss Deborah had nothing when she helped me, but she gave everything. The sign in my window says it all now. Kindness served daily. Revenge served cold. Harrison not served at all." Marcus, that boy from the dumpster, is 17 now. He just got early acceptance to culinary school. He asked me once if I ever regretted not taking Harrison's original $15,000, avoiding 21 years of hell. Never, I told him, because then I wouldn't have fed Tommy. Tommy wouldn't have saved me. We wouldn't have saved you. Kindness isn't an investment, Marcus, but somehow it always pays the highest returns. Tommy added with that grin that still looked 8 years old sometimes. Besides, 15,000 versus 50 million in justice? I'm good at math. We won. December 20th, 2025. I'm still here, still serving revival soup, still finding cold kids by the dumpster occasionally, though less often now that word spread about our shelter. The cafe serves 1,000 people daily through various programs. Tommy runs a $1 billion anti-fraud operation. Marcus just started his culinary journey. And Grandma's recipe? I finally wrote it down. The secret ingredient was never a mystery. It was just love, measured in the only unit that matters, enough. Kindness compounds better than any investment on Wall Street.